Welcome back to the most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube. Welcome back to Swivel Chair Sports. I'm your host, Zach Circleberg Merkel, here with the coast today. Aaron, go and say hi, Aaron.
Hi, if you like our content, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment and let us know what you think.
Yep, we're on our way to 250 subscribers. So your subscription means a lot in helping us reach that goal. But other than that, let's go ahead and get into it. So, unfortunately, in this video, Joe was not able to join us today. He had some prior engagements to adhere to. But, similar to what we did last week, we're going to be giving out our predictions for a division in the NFL, this time being the AFC South division, including the Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans, Tennessee Titans, and Jacksonville Jaguars. In the last video, we went through the schedule of each team in the division, kind of gave our predictions on what we think each team's record's going to look like, and in turn kind of giving our predictions where we think the division is going to land as well. So basically what we're going to be doing in this video as well, make sure to comment down below if you disagree with any of our opinions, because I'm sure you will. People always do, and that's perfectly okay. But let's go ahead and go look at the first team and the schedule that they're going to be having to go up against this next season. All right, so starting off with our first team here, we got the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, the Colts last year just missed out on the playoffs, having to start backup quarterback Gardner Minshew for a large portion of the year after rookie QB Anthony Richardson went down with injury in the first quarter of the season. Hopefully, this next upcoming year, we get to see Anthony Richardson's full potential at the NFL level. Has some pretty good receivers around him to throw to. However, that defense probably didn't add enough pieces to really make a substantial improvement. But nevertheless, here in their first 8 weeks, they've got quite the gauntlet to run through, playing teams such as Houston twice in that span, as well as at Jacksonville, at Green Bay, versus Miami. So a tough first half of the season for the Colts. I expect them to get off to a really rough start, if I'm being honest. I think there's a lot of potential with this team, but a lot of unknown, specifically at the quarterback position, with Anthony Richardson not playing a full year since high school. And then that defense obviously has tons of question marks, with their most notable addition being rookie edge rusher Laiatu Latu. Outside of that, they didn't really make a whole lot of substantial improvements to that side of the football. But I kind of picture them starting off the year 1-7 in those first 8 games, beating Chicago, but kind of struggling to match up against a lot of these other squads. I think Tennessee squeezes out one of the 2 games that they'll end up playing the Colts in this year, so I kind of gave them the home win here in Week 6. But other than that, I mean, they're playing a bunch of playoff caliber teams. Like I said, Houston twice, Green Bay, at Jacksonville, Miami, Pittsburgh. So really tough slate those first 8 weeks. After that, though, I do see them, kind of picking it up here in the back half of the season, getting a win against Minnesota, who should, struggle in a transition year this season, but then probably drop one to a good Buffalo team. Probably drop 3 straight, actually, to Buffalo, at New York Jets, and then Detroit, who obviously made the NFC Championship game last year, so a tough game there. With Aaron Rodgers coming back for the Jets, I expect them to be a lot better than last season. So now you're going into Week 13 with only 2 wins in 12 games. Not exactly how you probably imagined your season going. Unfortunately, you're just playing a lot of really good teams those first 12 weeks. Go into New England, I think should be able to pick up a win there to give you 3 wins before the bye. And then I actually see you winning all 4 of these last games after the bye week. I think you come out of the bye, hopefully Anthony Richardson's learned a lot with, basically a full season under his belt at that point. You got some cupcake matchups with a Denver team that's in a transitional period, should struggle. Tennessee, but you get them at home. So, like I said, I expect you to split home and home with them this year. New York Giants shouldn't be very good, so I think you can win that game. And then I also have you splitting Jacksonville, so that's where that last win comes in to bring you to a record of, I guess that's 7-10. I originally think I had 6-11, but I guess I moved you up to 7-10 for the Indianapolis Colts. Probably not exactly the season you're hoping for, but nevertheless, I do think it's a pretty good first full season with Anthony Richardson under center, if he ends up remaining healthy.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Um, I've got them probably at the low end, having 4 wins. But if they, if that offense can be as exciting as a lot of people hope it is, especially with Anthony Richardson kind of coming into his own in this season, I could see them getting around 9 wins over teams, like Pittsburgh, maybe sweeping Tennessee, splitting with Jacksonville, maybe shocking the Jets. Maybe they're not quite as good as people think, but I'll probably have them land somewhere in the middle, around like 6 wins. A lot of questions on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, the defense is really my biggest concern with this team. I have real high hopes for Anthony Richardson. I think his athletic profile is just off the charts. Whether or not that's going to transition to the quarterback position at the NFL level is to be seen. But he's got a great group of weapons around him. Jonathan Taylor, obviously in the backfield, could be a top 5 running back yet again this year. You got Michael Pittman Jr. starting to come into his own. Just drafted Adonai Mitchell. Still have Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, so really good skill position players over there on the offensive side. And then they still have a lot of those holdovers from the Andrew Luck years on the front 5, those offensive linemen. They still got a couple good pieces from that big bad offensive line that they created to protect Andrew Luck a few years ago. That defense is concerning, though. Last year, 5th worst team as far as points allowed goes, so obviously, if you're going to do that, the offense better be humming. Otherwise, you're not going to win too often many games. I do think this offense can hum. It's just a matter of, will they be able to overcome those deficiencies by the defense? I'm not sure. So that's kind of why I have them right around 500 with the 7-win mark. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team a lot of people thought was going to run away with the AFC South last year. Texans kind of came out of nowhere and surprised everybody, but a lot of expectations were on Jacksonville last year that they did not live up to, missing the playoffs after making it the year before and getting Trevor Lawrence's first playoff win. I think this year should be kind of a return to, I guess you can't really say normalcy yet, but back to, what Trevor Lawrence and this Jaguars team is capable of. Last year, I think they were limited by injury, specifically at the quarterback position with Trevor Lawrence. If he's coming into this year 100% and can stay healthy throughout the season, I expect this team to be a playoff team. I think that's the only reason they missed it last year. I've said that multiple times this offseason. But similar to the Colts, kind of a tough schedule. Couple good teams here in the beginning with Miami, Cleveland, Buffalo, Houston. But I think the Jaguars have the firepower on offense to kind of overcome some of these teams. I do have them coming out the gates and losing to Miami, but then picking up a couple tough wins against Cleveland and at Buffalo, which I think is going to be a little surprising to some people. My reasoning for having them beat Buffalo early in the year. No Stephon Diggs for the first time in a long time for Josh Allen, so there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period, I think. Buffalo will figure it out, obviously, throughout the year because they're Buffalo, they have Josh Allen, but I think they may come out the gates struggling a little bit, and if Jacksonville's, coming out the gates determined to, correct a lot of those mistakes from last season, then I could see them beating Buffalo on the road. Tough game at Houston. I don't see them winning just with Houston's track record right now, but then you've got Indianapolis, Chicago, and New England. I think you should be able to scoop up 3 easy wins right there. Relatively easy wins at least. Then you got Green Bay and at Philly, which I think are going to be 2 tough games. I'm really high on Green Bay this year. I'm also fairly high on Philly as well, so I see you dropping both of those, Jacksonville. But nevertheless, 9 weeks into the season, I have you with 4 wins, so 4-5, right around that 500 record, with a chance of going on a run in the second half of the season to maybe sneak into the playoffs. Week 10 and 11, right before the bye, I've got you splitting those, beating Minnesota, losing at Detroit. Detroit's a really tough team, once again coming off an NFC Championship appearance where they were leading at halftime and very well should have probably went on to the Super Bowl. After the bye, you got Houston, Tennessee, and the Jets. I see you going 2-1 in that stretch, splitting with Houston on the year, getting that win back that you dropped in week 4. Should, in theory, be able to beat the Jets too, I think. But for whatever reason, divisional matchup, I think you lose one to Tennessee. But even if that doesn't happen, you lose to the Jets or Houston. I see you going 2-3 in that stretch from week 13 to 15, and then those last 3 weeks of the season against Vegas, Tennessee, and Indianapolis, another 2 out of 3 stretch in my opinion, beating Vegas and Tennessee, but end up inevitably splitting with Indianapolis throughout the year. So that would bring your total wins, Jacksonville, to 10, going 10-7 on the year. In my opinion, just missing out on the playoffs, I believe. But that's because I got a lot of other teams right on that fringe really, really playing well. So I could see you sneaking in as a wild card team. I probably don't expect you winning the division, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think a division win will be tough with, if it's the same Texans team as last year. But I do see kind of the Jaguars being in that wild card mix, kind of around that 10-win area, kind of like you said. I like your take on the Cleveland and Buffalo wins early in the season. I kind of had a similar opinion. Then I kind of think, they go on, Indy, Chicago, New England, I think there should be good, solid wins for them. And then, Green Bay, Philly, tough draw. Minnesota, I don't know that anybody really knows exactly what they could be. That could be a tough matchup, but I don't know that a lot of people are expecting a lot from them. So, probably another win there. But this Jacksonville team, I think, could easily be contending for the wild card position.
Yeah, last year they were right around the middle of the pack in defense, so I expect probably similar results this year. Offense should be better, I would think, with Trevor Lawrence, in theory, being healthy for all 17 games, hopefully. Moved on from Calvin Ridley, but you brought in Brian Thomas Jr., who I think's really, really underrated in this receiving class, because you got guys like Rome Odunze, teammate Malik Neighbors, obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. that went ahead of him. But Brian Thomas Jr., I think, has just as good a chance as probably any of those guys as being the top rookie wide receiver this upcoming year, specifically because he has Trevor Lawrence throwing to him, probably the best quarterback out of that group. So, yeah, they should be competing for a playoff spot, possibly even the division. But this next team we're about to talk about, I think a lot of people expect to carry over the performance they had last year. And that team is the Houston Texans. Last year, storming onto the scene, shocking the world, winning the AFC South when everybody thought it was the Jaguars to lose in not only C.J. Stroud starting quarterback's rookie year, but also head coach DeMeco Ryans' rookie year as head coach. So, against all odds, Houston was able to march their way into the playoffs. But not only that, they also won a playoff game, beating, granted, probably the worst playoff team in the AFC, not named Pittsburgh, but beat the Cleveland Browns in the first round. Went on to the second and couldn't quite come away with the win against Baltimore. But bright future for this team down in Houston. And I expect a lot of the same this upcoming year. Starting off the season, I think they're going to come out the gates hot, winning their first 4 games, beating Indy, beating Chicago, Minnesota, and Jacksonville. Just coming out the gates firing. I think they've got a lot of confidence, especially with the addition of Stephon Diggs this offseason, and Joe Mixon for that matter. I think they're going to have a lot of confidence coming out the gate, start off really, really hot. Run into a tough team in Buffalo that I think this is around the point where they start figuring it out 4-5 games in. Josh Allen's kind of got a little bit more comfort with those pieces that aren't named Stephon Diggs. I also think there's going to be a little bit of a vendetta Josh Allen may have in beating Stephon Diggs that first time they match up after Stephon basically walked out on him. So I think Buffalo comes away with that win in Week 5, but still starting off 4-1 is nothing to sneeze at. Go into New England should be a easy winnable game right there, so move that record up to 5-1. And then you got at Green Bay. Lambeau's tough place to play. Green Bay's kind of in the same position Houston is. Young quarterback in her first year starting somehow against all odds, made the playoffs, won a playoff game. So it'll be interesting to see Jordan Love and CJ Stroud match up against each other in that Week 7 matchup. I do expect Green Bay to come away with it. I'm just a little bit more confident on the defense that Green Bay is putting out there than the defense Houston's is. Houston's got a lot of new pieces this offseason on the defensive side of the football, specifically in that front seven. So still to be seen how those are going to impact the team. But after that, you got Indianapolis and the Jets that I think you can win both of those. Detroit should be another tough game. I think you lose that one. Sunday Night Football. Just don't quite have enough against, once again, that Detroit defense, I think, could kind of be the difference maker. I think Aiden Hutchinson could get back there a couple times against CJ Stroud. But then you got Dallas, Tennessee, and Jacksonville. I see you winning 2 out of those 3. Beating Dallas, actually probably at least, yeah, definitely winning 2 out of 3. I could see you possibly losing to Dallas, but if you beat them, then you might lose to Jacksonville. Regardless, you probably go 2-3 in that stretch of games before the bye, and so you're going into the bye with. So you're going into the bye in Week 14 with 8 wins, going 8-4, 8-5, yeah. So you go into the bye with 8 wins, going 8-5, looking to, clinch another division this season. Miami, KC, Baltimore, and Tennessee to wrap up the year. I see you storming into the playoffs, finishing the season similar to how you started, winning 4 straight games. Really tough games against Kansas City and Baltimore, but I think this is kind of where Houston shows that they belong in the pack with those kind of guys up in the top of the AFC. So, yeah, a lot of people probably don't have them beating those 2 teams right there, specifically Kansas City and Baltimore. But I think Houston is out to prove that last year wasn't a fluke this year. So I've got them going 13-4. And a lot of people aren't going to like this. I've got them getting the first seed in the AFC and that first round bye. In CJ Stroud's second year.
Cold take. Yeah. They've got kind of a tough schedule if you look at it. Buffalo, not an easy game. Green Bay, not an easy game. Detroit and Dallas, not easy games. And then they finish out the season. Their last 4 games, 3 of those teams could be vying for the 1 seed in the AFC. So pretty tough schedule ahead of them. I've got them around 12 wins. So I think this could be an exciting season. Foot, I don't know what you'd necessarily call it, a stamp, a trademark, I guess, kind of showing that they've turned around their franchise. They've got their franchise guy, CJ Stroud, and a bunch of good young offensive talent around him, and are showing that they're here to stay for the time to be.
Yeah, I'm probably higher. Well, I know a lot of people are high on Houston this upcoming year. And I'm probably one of the highest people you can find on them because I don't think many people have them winning the regular season AFC, getting the first seed in the first round bye, especially in the division they're in where Jacksonville should be competitive. They're playing the NFC North, so they had to go through teams like Detroit, Green Bay. Yeah, like you said, not an easy schedule. They also have the AFC East where they got to go through the Jets, Buffalo, and Miami. Kansas City, Baltimore also thrown in there. So, yeah, a lot of really tough teams. It's going to be a battle of will for this Houston team, a battle to see if they really do belong in the upper echelon of the league like a lot of us think they do. I'm excited to see what they can do, but I think they're up for the challenge. So, and finally, we have the last team in this division, the Tennessee Titans. Last year, I believe they were last in the division, not playing awfully well, alternating through quarterbacks, going from Ryan Tannehill, finishing the season with Will Levis. Derrick Henry played his last year there. He is no longer a Titan. Congrats to an incredible career in Tennessee, however, up there in Baltimore now. I think it's going to be a slow rebuild for this Tennessee team. I think the best part of this unit right now maybe the receiving room, but I think the secondary is right up there with some of the best ones in the league, potentially, on paper. You got L'Jarius Sneed, and then I'm telling you, man, I saw one Twitter clip, and I'm not going to lie. I'm basing a lot of this whole best secondary, one of the best secondaries in the league, off of this one clip I saw. But man, this Jarvis Brownlee guy locking up Tyler Boyd in practice. No arm sleeves, no wristbands. I don't even know if the dude had socks. He looked like a freaking lunatic out there. Well, he was clamping. That's all I know. He was clamping. So that Tennessee secondary could be scary. Really physical guys, at least in Snead and Brownlee. But I don't see a lot of wins coming for the Titans this year. I think they're probably going to be looking at another year to not necessarily tank, but they're probably going to be looking towards the top of the draft this upcoming offseason. Starting off the year, I don't love that they're buys in week 5. That's not really fair to them because they really could have used a bye later on in the year. They're going to get 4 games in, take a break, and then all of a sudden they're not going to be having much fun. So I've got them starting off the season 0-4. I unfortunately don't see a win there in those first 4 weeks. I think they could beat Chicago, obviously, in week 1, starting a rookie quarterback in his first game. But I'd like to think, as a Caleb Williams supporter, that he would have the ability to, grow some nuts and go out there and prove a lot of haters wrong. So that's kind of what I'm riding on in that week 1 matchup against Chicago. After that, they got Indianapolis, Buffalo, Detroit, and New England following the bye. I see them splitting those games, going 2-2, losing to Buffalo and Detroit, but hopefully they're able to split with Indianapolis on the season, and then they can pick up a win against New England. So that brings their win total to a whopping 2 in their first 8 games. Probably not ideal. Going 2-6 to start the season. They go into the second half of the year. Chargers, Vikings, Texans, Commanders. Another 2-2 stretch in my mind, losing to the Chargers, who hopefully are starting to kind of figure it out with Harbaugh at the helm there in LA. Losing to Houston as well, just because Houston's potentially going to be a juggernaut this season, but hopefully can pick up wins against Minnesota and Washington. And then after that, to finish up the year, you got Jacksonville, Cincy, Indianapolis, Jacksonville again, and then your second game against Houston. Really, really tough stretch to end the season. I could see you maybe sneaking one of those Jacksonville games out, but other than that, losing the rest of the games, losing 4 out of the 5 to wrap up the year. So I see Tennessee finishing with a 5-12 record, pretty similar to what they finished with last season, and are probably going to be towards the top end of the draft once again. Hopefully looking to add some pieces to maybe the offense, maybe the secondary, maybe the defense. Maybe they're deciding that they're moving on from Will Levis and they want to find someone else at quarterback. But regardless, I don't see them, performing very well record-wise this upcoming year.
Yeah, this Titans team is interesting because they've got, a lot of turnover this offseason. New coach, lots of new defensive pieces, some big names, Snead, Awuzie, bring in Devondre Sweat in the draft. So they've got a lot of turnover, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. On paper, they look like a decent team. I think it's just whether or not the whole scheme fit works out, and whether Levis, takes a step forward this year. I think a lot of the questions on that offense are centered around him. I mean, they've got a decent offensive line, obviously drafting J.C. Latham this year and Skoronski last year. Those are 2 good young offensive linemen that should anchor that left side for him, but I think a lot of it hangs on Will Levis, and this is going to be sort of a tester year for him. And I think that they've got enough talent around him where he can succeed. And if he doesn't show any improvement, maybe you look to move on via free agency or draft. But Yeah, I've got them probably around 5 wins. I think it's gonna be a tough season. I don't have much faith in Will Levis.
Yeah, and as much of a Will Levis supporter as I am, I'm not going to be blind to his deficiencies by any means. The dude holds the ball a little too long. He can be a little wild with his accuracy, and just downright, I don't know if he's
Knock it
gonna
up.
be able to put it all together. I hope so, because I'm rooting for him. But I think it's a good chance that they may be looking at a QB replacement in the draft if they finish with 5 wins or less. Maybe it's a guy like Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers. The best one of the bunch is probably Brady Cook out of Mizzou. But
Hey, the Dion probably won't let Shedeur go to the Titans, so he's
True.
going somewhere else.
Yeah,
Probably Dallas.
not a big enough market. That's fair. Yeah, Dak's out, so he hasn't gotten paid yet. But no, the Titans are. I don't think they're in trouble. They're at the very, very beginning of this rebuild. They just moved on from Derrick Henry. They technically just moved on from Ryan Tannehill as well. So they're just now starting to, kind of put the pieces together for this rebuild. I think it's going to be a slow rebuild. They're Tennessee. They're not a big market name like Dallas or Miami or New York, even LA. So I don't know how many people are going to be rushing to Nashville to play for the Titans, but I think their best bet's probably going to be building through the draft and maybe seeing if they could sneak out some, cheap free agent diamonds in the rough these next couple years. But here are our AFC South season predictions. We both kind of imagine the Texans are going to kind of, maybe not run away with the division, but should have the best odds of winning the division. Jacksonville should have a chance at sneaking in as a wild card this season into the playoffs, but neither one of us are particularly high on the Colts or Titans. We both kind of see them finishing anywhere within the range of like 5 to 7 wins for the most part. But who knows? In this division specifically, last year the Texans came out of nowhere, surprised the world. I could see the Colts maybe being that team with Anthony Richardson and that unit on offense. Haven't really gotten to see their full potential yet. I could even, if Will Levis, maybe really, really got work in this offseason, comes out and is just insanely different, maybe the Titans are that team. I don't think that's going to happen, but who knows?
Hey, the Titans have a lot of veteran players.
They do have a lot of veteran players.
At the right spots.
They added a lot of good
So
pieces.
I think if any team, with a young quarterback can kind of get going, I think Tennessee's probably up there.
Well, and they did bring in a lot of good pieces this offseason on defense specifically. So that defense, I think, is going to be much improved. Last year, they were around middle of the pack in points allowed. So I could see them maybe jumping up to top 10 in that category with the additions that they've made on the defensive side. So it'll be really exciting to see. I'm really stoked to see how some of these teams perform. A division full of just young, full of potential quarterbacks. So it's going to be exciting to see who comes out on top. But unless you got anything else, Aaron, I think that'll do it. This episode of the most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube, Swivel Chair Sports. I've been your host, Zach Circle Bark Purple, here with the coach today, Aaron. Go and say bye, Aaron.
Bye.
All right, please make sure to like and subscribe if you've made it this far and you haven't already. Make sure to comment down below if there's any opinions we made that you disagree with or just facts we objectively got wrong that you want to call us out on, because that happens a lot. We're not very bright. But other than that, deuces, and have a good day.